I'm Rachel Brown. I'm a HR business partner working with SYLO Beyond HR. And I'll just hand over to Steph and let him introduce himself as well.
Hello everyone, my name is Stefano and I am the MD of SP1 IT Solutions. I've got my slides later, so I'll tell you a bit more about our company. Just a reminder, we are recording this webinar, so if you don't want to be on screen or you don't want to be recorded, please let us know and then we will make arrangement for you to do. And then we should be able to send you a link for the recording after and at the end of the webinar.
Great. So I'll just tell you a bit about SYLO. I know some of you on the call will already be familiar, but SYLO Beyond HR, we are an HR consultancy. We have grown tremendously over the past couple of years. And in fact, we rebranded last year to SYLO Beyond HR because not only can we support clients and businesses with HR consultancy needs, but also we've expanded our offering as well. So we're able to support businesses with business strategy and planning, advice and support. We have a fantastic team, a learning and development team. We work with a fantastic set of recruiters. We also offer health and safety and other solutions as well, like mediation support and counselling for individuals as well. So there's a whole host of services that we're able to offer. Okay, next slide, please, Steph. So this was just a bit of a quote I wanted to flash up because, you know, given the year that we have had and we are kind of still coming out, hopefully coming out the end of the pandemic now as restrictions begin to ease again. But I just thought this was quite a thought-provoking quote. In the rush to return back to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. And this just serves as food for thought as we go through the session, really. And it applies to us both as individuals, but also as organisations, really, to consider how they may wish to move forward as we ease out of these restrictions. So next slide, please, Steph. So what is hybrid working? And, you know, at its most basic level, hybrid working involves a combination of remote, semi-remote and office-based employees. So it may sound like it's flexible working in disguise, but there is actually a clear distinction. And the hybrid working model provides more autonomy to decide how, when, and crucially where people work best. So that allows them to have more of a work-life balance according to their needs. And hybrid working, as I said, shouldn't be confused with flexible working. In the UK, we have something called the right to request flexible working, and that's a statutory right at an individual level. But hybrid working really is, it's a wider change management piece. And it's definitely a way of working, and it really is a culture change as well. It's not to be underestimated. And I'll come on to that in a bit more detail later on in the presentation. And there are certain considerations that need to be carefully thought through before you're implementing hybrid working across the business. But I just wanted to show you a really great short video that I found, which just gives some reflections really on people's experiences when we're thinking about the year that we've just had and the pandemic, and how initially when we went into lockdown that overnight literally threw people into this new world of remote working. And it's interesting as the video plays out to see the shift in people's mindsets and perhaps the lessons that they've learnt between the first lockdown and the second lockdown. So if you could play the video for me, Steph, that'd be great.
Everybody's just standing there on the platform looking so miserable. I had enough.
I think the other day I worked out that I'd spent around about 1.5 years of my life on a train.
It's been a catalyst for a great deal of change.
Once it becomes a permanent thing, you start noticing a lot of issues.
I can't continue to work like this, surrounded by laundry and dirty dishes.
Not having a stopping point where home and office merged.
There's a danger for some people who then think, I better start at 6 and finish at 9.
It's very easy to start isolating yourself from the outside world.
It took a toll on my mental health.
Yeah, at the beginning, I did get quite lonely.
My second lot of working from home, I feel like I'm doing it right this time.
I may go to London for 1 day a week. I may go to a co-working space another day a week.
The team wanted to maintain that flexibility to work where they felt most productive.
Many businesses were already looking at what roles their corporate estate plays in their future.
My generation is starting to realise they can work from anywhere.
We're going to start to see the regeneration of different parts of the country.
People with corporate high-rises might have to just look at how they're going to use that space.
So instead of it being vacant office space, you're going to have to build flats. So people will be living and working in the same area.
They want to be able to use more sustainable forms of public transport, and they're not necessarily over-reliant on a car. And they are not having that onerous commute in as well.
Thanks, Steph. So I really like that video, and I just, I liked to see people's reflections over the course of kind of last year into this year in terms of, as I said, the scramble to remote working as the first lockdown hit us.
Working from home has become a reality for many office workers around the world. While a very pared back.
Sorry, the next.
It's so good we want to play it twice. Yeah, I was just saying, I think, it's just interesting to see the shift in mindset that people have around kind of remote working, kind of almost, fearing it. It was a real scramble, I think, the first lockdown for everybody to get their heads around remote working. But as time kind of went on, people then started to actually realise the benefits of working more flexibly, working remotely. And I think now, as we're starting to think about the future, people are seeing and feeling the benefits of perhaps a more hybrid approach. So a mix, really, of people are wanting a mix of office and home-based working. That seems to give a really nice balance for people. So next slide, please, Steph. So I just wanted to throw a quick poll out there just to gauge the people that we've got on the call, whether you're actually considering implementing hybrid working within your organisation, either now or in the near future. So if you could run the poll for me, Steph. Now I'm hoping that because you're on the call, that you've got an interest in hybrid working, and it's something that you're definitely thinking about implementing in the future. There may be some people still sort of sat on the fence and a little bit unsure about it. So can you see the results there, Steph?
Yeah. Two people saying yes, and one saying maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So it probably reflects the national trend, really. I think there's a keen desire for organisations to start thinking about the possibility of implementing hybrid working. But there are also, I know, because I've had conversations with clients, there's organisations that are they're not quite sure. This is going to be quite a big adjustment, quite a big change for them to implement. So they may still be sitting on the fence a little bit. Could I have the next slide, please, Steph? So I just wanted to give you some examples here, and also some research, sort of statistics around the rise of hybrid working. So BP have recently announced that its office-based staff can work from home 40% of the time. So that's equivalent to 2 days per week for full-time employees. PricewaterhouseCoopers, their employees can work from home a couple of days per week. They're implementing flexible start and finish times and an early Friday finish. Nationwide have announced 13,000 of its 18,000 UK workforce can decide where they work under their new flexible working scheme. And in terms of surveys and research that are out there at the moment, YouGov revealed that in total 57% of workers wanted to continue from home, either full-time or part home, part office. And the CIPD research shows that pre-pandemic, 65% of employees did not offer any form of regular home working. And where it did, this was predominantly offered to just 10% or less of its workforce. But after the crisis, it's expected to drop significantly from 65% to 37%. So only 37% of organisations will now not be planning on offering any form of hybrid arrangement or home working. And that research was conducted across the board, so large and smaller employers. Now, the examples that I've given you here are quite kind of large corporates. They've been out there in the media talking about what they're going to implement. But we've certainly been having some discussions with smaller businesses, SMEs, and they are also starting to think about implementing hybrid working and have come to us for some support and guidance around how they go about implementing that. So yeah, I thought it would be good just to show you some of the statistics and some examples of what others are doing. So next slide, please, Steph. So why hybrid? There has, as we've seen in the video, and we're seeing it a lot in the media, there's a real shift in employee expectations and desires to more flexible forms of working. They have now, in the main, got used to the idea of home working, and they've seen the benefits. So there's certainly a desire and a shift in terms of expectations. I think it's fair to say also that the traditional office-based 9-to-5 kind of working day prior to the pandemic was beginning to show its cracks, in terms of the inflexibility, being quite non-inclusive, particularly for working parents and those with caring responsibilities. The sort of 9-to-5 was developed in the Victorian era, the factory working. So it was quite behind the times and not necessarily in touch with, the technological advances that we're seeing and the 24/7 connectivity that we have. So, I think there was definitely a movement starting around a hybrid working approach. But I think the pandemic has just shone a spotlight on that. And, June the 21st is the date that we're being told is, when we're going to be kind of free of most of the restrictions. And, that's why it's such a hot topic for businesses at the moment in terms of their thinking around looking at implementing hybrid working. So in terms of the business benefits and return on investment, in terms of not doing this, what are the impacts? And I think that employers who don't embrace some form of hybrid working may risk an increase in their employee turnover, reduced employee engagement. Potentially there could be limitations on future talent attraction. So, sourcing and hiring people into your business. People are more and more looking for flexible forms of working, mix of home and office working. And a lot of organisations, a lot of employers are now making that kind of front and centre to their recruitment campaigns to really drive that attraction. An impact on nurturing, there could potentially be an impact on nurturing inclusion and diversity. I mentioned before working parents. So, you know, flexibility is really important to working parents. So, you know, by not doing this, you could potentially be, you know, there could be a barrier there in terms of the types of talent that you're able to tap into, but also impacts on employee well-being as well. So yeah, the shift to more agile hybrid working was certainly on the cards. And it was always going to be a gradual movement, but I think the pandemic has just forced this change more quickly. As I said, people have become used to this way of working now. There's a clear desire, as we've seen in the statistics, on both the part of the organisation but also the employees to make this way of working the new normal. So I'm going to talk now about the business benefits. So next slide, please. So in terms of the benefits of hybrid working, then there are many actually. You know, in terms of the business benefits, we're looking at an increased employee engagement, productivity and well-being, talent attraction and retention I've already touched on, reduced sickness absence. Also, you know, there could be gains there in terms of reduction in estate and facilities costs, so reducing your overheads. It might be that you can give up all or a proportion of your office space by implementing hybrid working. You can certainly save on overheads and utility costs. So there are some real business benefits there. In terms of benefits from an employee perspective, it's about a better work-life balance, a greater ability to focus with fewer distractions, more time for family and friends, saved commuting time and costs, higher levels of motivation, and some of those will have come out in the video that we watched there as well. I think the full benefits of hybrid working are yet to be fully researched and reported on, but I think we can expect that it will, when properly implemented and supported, lead to similar benefits for both employees and organisations alike. And I think it's also fair to say that hybrid working won't be for everybody. It certainly is a culture shift, particularly if you're used to working quite a traditional way. And also some businesses logistically may not be able to implement this type of arrangement, or they may not be able to offer it to their entire workforce. And some employees may prefer the traditional office working. So I think the key is to consider enough flex in the policy to allow hybrid working on an opt-in basis rather than a blanket one-size-fits-all approach. Next slide, please, Steph. Now, this is quite a busy slide. I hope you can see it okay. But this just gives a flavour of some of the hybrid working considerations that we should be thinking about when implementing a hybrid working approach. And I think hybrid working isn't a plug and play. It is going to take some careful planning and consideration. And as I said before, I think it's a real culture shift. But there are four kind of key areas that I really wanted to highlight. The first is in the purple section there. So business planning and communication. So I think the first thing that businesses should be doing really is to agree their position on hybrid working and whether it's actually going to be feasible for them. So, that's assessing the operational implications, the scope and the capacity, but also the cost implications. So, for example, would you need to invest in better technology to be able to support a hybrid working approach? The second part of this is, conducting a listening exercise with employees. So that could be through either consultation with your employees, it could be through one-to-ones, it could be through a survey, depending on the size of your business. But it's really important to, if you feel that hybrid working is going to be feasible for your business in some shape or form. It's really important that you understand what your people are looking for out of that. So understanding their views, their concerns, their desires about returning to the workplace and what they want from a longer term working arrangement is going to be key. Then it's really about defining what hybrid working will look like with regard to your specific organisational context. So this might include different forms of hybrid working. Even within one organisation, it really just depends on the nature of your business. Development of a communication plan, so you can share your plans for hybrid working with all your employees, and things like information on how they go about requesting hybrid working. That leads us nicely on to the next section, which is the green section you see there. So this is around implementing kind of policy, procedure, guidance, and IT considerations, which I will leave for Steph to talk through. But you know, if you're implementing a hybrid working approach, you need to back that up with the right policies and procedures, and also you need to consider whether there's going to be any legal or contractual implications. So if you're looking at changing somebody's primary place of work, that may result in a permanent change to their terms and conditions. So it's important to consider the contractual implications of doing this as well. You may very well, some organisations may end up with a bit of a mix of agile hybrid working. So there could be sort of three streams. So you've got the legislative flexible working policy, which all businesses should have in place. So that is the right to request flexible working on an individual basis. It might be that you look to incorporate hybrid working as well, but you may have people that are fully in your business fully working remotely. And this could be a temporary change or it could be a more permanent change. So that also needs to be defined. As I said, I'll leave the technology and the IT considerations to Steph, who'll take you through that in a minute. In terms of the orange section there, so this is around, you know, the training and development. I think manager training is going to be absolutely crucial. And I think that although managers may have developed lots of new skills over the last year in terms of managing a remote workforce, I think hybrid working perhaps brings unique challenges that are different from either managing people who are fully remote or fully office-based. Yeah, so there needs to be a bit more of an agile people management approach if you've got teams that are kind of dispersed and working in different places at different times. So communication skills and connectivity are going to be important. Performance management is going to be another area that you want to consider as well. And it might be that you need to make some changes around your performance management and appraisal systems, approaches. And Steph and I had a bit of a discussion about this the other day, actually, in terms of how you manage people's performance and how you measure people's performance, because I think, you know, the hybrid working approach is going to result in less monitoring around presenteeism and, you know, having bums on seats and, you know, the number of hours that people are working, and it's going to shift the emphasis more on placing merit on their performance outputs. So that's a consideration as well. Team and relationship building is going to be really important. That collaboration when you're working in hybrid teams is really key. So also I think it's important to say that managers, so well-being is a massive consideration, and it has been the past year, mental health and well-being. has taken a real impact. And I will come on to that. This is in the blue section, but manager training around spotting the sort of signs and symptoms of stress in their team members is also going to be an important training consideration as well. Diversity and inclusion. There's diversity and inclusion elements in there as well, awareness, making sure that you're conducting effective inductions of new hires as well, coming into a sort of hybrid working world. It's just, you know, making sure that you're keeping up with that employee engagement when you're working with distributed or dispersed teams. And trust as well, that trust between employee and employer is absolutely key in making hybrid working a success. And there are less ways to build trust through physical interaction in the workplace. So coming on to the blue section there, health and safety and well-being, I think that there is a lot of anxiety in people around returning to a more normal way of working life, having spent the last year in the main working from home. So supporting employees to adjust back in and having really good communication with your employees is really, really important. You know, the initial need to follow the government's COVID secure guidelines, for which the HSE has published lots of guidance for businesses on this, in terms of carrying out risk assessments. So employers have a duty of care to all of their employees, and they need to be making sure that the working environment, whether that's, you know, the home working environment or the office working environment, is safe, and that you're not putting your employees at risk of poor health. So, you know, making sure that you've got those risk assessments in place is going to be really crucial. Managers should be checking in with their teams on a regular basis, even more so when you're thinking about remote working. You know, ideally this check-in should be face-to-face. So if they're working from home, that could be via a Zoom call, virtual meeting. But there's also an element there under health and safety around actually knowing the whereabouts of your people if you're working in a hybrid working sort of method. You know, who's going to be in the office on any given day is important, particularly, you know, in terms of fire safety and things like that. So making sure that you've got the right process and procedures around health and safety and looking after your people is key. In terms of well-being, so the feelings of isolation, I think was definitely one of the biggest contributors to poor mental health this past year, particularly so for young people who really enjoy the social interaction of the workplace, of the office environment. You know, there's less opportunity for people to connect. There's, you know, less water cooler chats, if you like. So continuing to provide employees with ways to connect with colleagues is going to be really important. So making sure that people are keeping up with their one-to-ones. You know, perhaps you implement some lunch and learns, you're promoting online communities, virtual social groups. The use of social media to bring people together is really effective as well. Also encouraging employees to create effective boundaries between home and work, making sure that they're taking regular breaks, they're taking their annual leave, they've got a good routine in place, such as sort of start and end times. They're following up, you're following up with your teams as well if you notice that they're working long hours into the evenings and weekends. So yeah, it's just keeping a lens on mental health and well-being is going to be really key. Travel as well is another consideration. So you can discuss travel arrangements with employees, you know, when you're starting to talk about their return back to the workplace, hybrid working, whatever kind of shape that looks like. But you may have employees that are reliant on public transport and who have concerns. So consider how you can support those employees. So it might be that you can implement things like flexible start and finish times to avoid them commuting at busier times of the day. So yeah, communication is absolutely key. I think essentially, in summary, to wrap this up, really, there are 3 core elements that you need to be considering when you're looking at hybrid working or looking at implementing hybrid working. Number 1 is, where do you see your business in terms of the future of work? Can you accommodate hybrid working fully or in some capacity? It might be that you need to carry out some sort of SWOT analysis, looking at the business benefits, the drawbacks, whether you're able to accommodate it across the entire workforce or whether there are limitations in who you can offer it to. So it's about defining the scope. Once you understand that and what you're able to do as a business, then it's about consulting with your employees and really understanding from them what it is that they're looking for. And I'm sure that there's going to have to be some compromise on both sides. And then having considered all of those elements, it's about making a plan and implementing those changes. So, do seek professional guidance where you need to make sure that you're executing the plan effectively. It does need to be handled sensitively. There are a huge number of considerations. And it's important that you're covering off those legal obligations, particularly if we're talking about making changes to people's kind of contract. We, SYLO, and I know Steph would vouch for this, that we'd be very happy to have a follow-up discussion with any of you. If you want to chat through your thinking around implementing a hybrid working approach. And, we'd be very pleased to support you in doing so. So yeah, I'd be very happy if you want to drop me a line afterwards and I'd happily connect in a call with you. But so there are just a few slides really when we're looking at, in terms of looking at the people side of implementing a hybrid working approach. So I'm going to hand over now to Steph, who's going to talk you through hybrid working, but from an IT perspective. So over to you, Steph.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Amazing. Thank you for the insight. Really, really informative. We are quite honored to be on this webinar with you guys. Thank you everyone for joining us. I think for dedicating us our time at the moment. So a little bit about us. So SP1 IT Solution, I'm the MD, Stefano, and we've been working remotely or in a hybrid way since we were founded about 5 years ago. And this is because I think, we sort of believe in digital transformation. We sort of go to clients and talk to people about how things can be done remotely in a more different way, and do you need to be in the office to do things. We talk about how systems and solutions can make your life business faster and more efficient. So we're an IT solution provider. We're a bit different than the normal standard break-fix IT company. We sort of look at the strategy, we have a look at the way businesses processes are, and we look at solutions to support that. And on top of that, we also provide some IT support break-fix. So you can call us and tell us that your word is not working. So I think what we're going to do today is I'm going to try to talk about the different scenarios about hybrid working, some sort of configurations that you can achieve in a way that is cost effective, and ultimately talk about the challenges of hybrid working and some tips on how to implement hybrid working from an IT point of view. So, as you know, what year has been? I mean, you know, we went from COVID, you know, the end of the world's here. No one knew what was happening. News were just like, didn't know there was this thing in Asia. And then, you know, I'm Italian, so I had my family phoning and saying, look, this is not a virus, is a bit more than this. Be careful, you know, just don't think is a cold. And then, you know, we saw that actually businesses start shutting down and we couldn't go there. So we were forced to go onto remote working. We had a shortage of computers. Laptops were like hotcakes. You couldn't buy them anywhere. And everyone has sort of rushed to implement some sort of remote working, either by, you know, remote into their office PC. People were going into the office and taking the cables and the screens and the mouse and everything and taking them home. And I think things have calmed down a little bit. People are just sort of coming out now and then looking at what actually the benefits are on a social, but also on a business business view. What actually can be achieved? Is it possible to have a hybrid way where, you know, you can have a better life work balance? You know, everyone is talking about a better life balance. You know, don't work 9 to 5, like Rachel said. In the Victorian era, it was when the 9 to 5 work was sort of the idea came about. Now with the technology, with, you know, some industries are more prone than others to have an hybrid working solution, especially for the service industry. I think if you're making components or something, you need to have people in the factory. But, you know, this is what's happening now. People are reviewing that. And is hybrid working going to be with us forever? You know, businesses now start thinking we need to go back. We need to start looking at what actually we can do. People don't really want to come back. They don't want to start commuting again an hour and a half, because they've been able to do the work. We have seen companies that, yes, they had a really bad year, like unfortunately the entertainment industry and the restaurants, we know they suffered a lot, but there are a lot of companies that tried, you know, just they managed to adapt and change to a different way of working. So is this going to be here for us, here for long, and how do we prepare that? From an IT point of view or from a digital technology point of view, I think a lot of the components that have made this digital transformation, or like ability for businesses to work remotely, were there already. So, you know, we have more than ever now really reliable internet connectivity, although some technical glitches about end users can't click on the right slide, or but there is connectivity nowadays is super fast. You know, going back 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to have, I think last stats said something like 140 million people daily, they just use Teams. It's just obscene to think that in the world there's like 140 million people connecting all together. And this is all like to do with connectivity. Internet speed is really fast. The 5G, you know, we have now mobile phone connectivity that if your internet connection goes down, you can use your mobile phone to just give you that access and that speed. So that's something that has been pivotal for this transformation. Also, I think mobile devices, I mean, I'm talking about mobile phones, laptops, tablets. These machines are so powerful, you could pretty much run anything on it nowadays. So, you know, where before big computers were chunky, they were under the desk, now with a portable device, is something like really slim, you can pretty much operate anything, and you can just throw at them quite a massive workload where, you know, you can your productivity as a worker is not affected by the speed of this. Also, I think a big pivotal change was cloud providers like the likes of Microsoft, Google, Azure, AWS. They have invested and they shifted completely the investment to make the cloud a lot more affordable, a bit more available to everyone. So you don't need to have a centralized infrastructure in the office anymore to access the data. You can pretty much access the data from anywhere, from any device. And this has allowed a lot of businesses to carry on working even if they had to shut that office down. And this is obviously allowing a lot of companies nowadays to shift to this new way of working. I think another big thing is about the apps. So, the likes of Zoom, for example, no one knew what Zoom was until, the pandemic started. So apps now are more agile. They have better way of connecting people and also help people to stay in touch from that social side that Rachel was talking about. It's not about technical and digital and IT side. Is also a lot to do with the social side. So in a way, I mean, there are a lot of good points about digital technology, but hybrid working has some quite challenges. A lot of them are not purely technology related. I mean, the social impact is something that Rachel, from an HR perspective, I think, you got a specialist there, so speak to them if you have concerns about that. But the younger generation, especially, I mean, this is what we see is that they struggle to pick up. So now, how do you grow your business? How do you make sure that younger people, younger generation, have that learning capacity within an office? You have them next to you. They can listen in. They can. Listening to conversation and come to meetings in a remote work, where hybrid work and a lot of people working from home. This is proven a big challenge for a lot of our organization. The other challenge is about output and productivity. So like Rachel mentioned before, and like we all know, ultimately a lot of the companies that look how much output someone can improve by doing the work. So is the seamless experience. So a lot of companies, by rushing to implement a remote working or hybrid working, what they've done is they've gone and picked up a lot of different things and they put it together and they're trying to make it work. But what that does gives a user a really broken down user experience. I can't access this, I can't do this. And then we see a lot of meetings where people get frustrated because they said, I need to work on this document, but you access it one way, someone else accesses it this way. So that is a really big challenge that is obviously having a knock-on effect on that. The overall technology is something that we need to consider. So I think is something that between office, remote, and working in the office and working home, you need to allow people to have exactly the same experience, have access to the same data, and having everything connected to the internet. So everything is internet facing. You connect to the office, you connect to the cloud, you connect to an app, everything is internet connected. So there is a lot more emphasis on security because it's a lot easier now to hack into a internet-based solution instead of when everything was on-prem or in an office. It was a lot harder for someone to try to hack into it. So one of the main challenges we see is about securing your environment, educating your users in terms of what is actually happening and how they can improve on that security. So looking at the challenges, looking at what's happening in technology, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look and see how you can implement an hybrid working. So in let's say in terms of technology and apps out there, there's about 8,000 different tools that allow for people to work in an hybrid way. Year on year, apart from this year, has been a bit exceptional, but there is about 20% increase on tool availability. So the main thing that we do is we advise businesses is about pick the right tool for what you're trying to do. So pick the right technology. There are so many out there that you need to make sure that the ones that you pick are the ones that are available for your industry and fit your bill, and depending on what you're trying to do. So once you have those tools, like although a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, like you have your Zoom for calls, and then you have your Office. A lot of those tools like CRM softwares for marketing, they need to be adapted and customized to actually what you want to do. So once you have chosen those tools, then you need to adapt them. And once you have adapted them, you need to deploy. But deployment is quite one of the challenges that we see at the moment in the industry, whereby the change management at the moment has become like a big thing for businesses, where we look at how people would perceive this new way of working and how we can help businesses look at all of the stages of a change management, i.e. educate users to look at the different apps and how they can change working. Now, once you have done all of those 3 stages, this is a bit of a framework that we use for some businesses, and it doesn't need to be complicated. I think the important thing is for someone like a specialist or someone that you work quite close with is to understand your business, to understand what you're trying to do, and they should be able to guide you through the technology that is right for your business. And I think this is the key core, is just about understanding your business functions and do that. So once you have employed this framework, what is that means for a business is that you can have different ways of implementing an hybrid technology. So the 3 main components here is the apps and operating system. So is the user experience we were talking about. So what do you want the person or that person to experience when they remote onto the system? So there are different ways of doing it. There is a more controlled way by using something called a virtual desktop. So what actually is possible is to create a virtual environment. So you log into a system via a secure connectivity, and then once you enter that system, all of your apps, all of your tools are there, and you can't really do much about changing them. So it's quite centrally controlled, whereby the organization, we use this for like bigger organizations that they do maybe have a bit more bandwidth or a bigger IT department where they can sort of manage themselves. So once you get into this environment, you have your emails, you have your CRM system, you have your video conferencing system, but everything is already prepared for you. So when you click on your emails pop up, and it's having a really good encompassed user experience, and a lot of people be able to access all of those info in one single pane of glass as such. Another way is to just, like you say, pick up what you want, and pick up your CRM, pick up your telephone system, pick up your security side of it, and then have those on a device where you can then access the same data via this apps, and this allows you to be more flexible. So if you want to trial a new software or something, then you can do that. So you can then maybe try different video conferencing software, for example, before you decide. Or we work with a lot of startups, so a lot of Oxford University spin out. They don't want to be locked down because they want to interact with different businesses with different apps. So some people might use a chat program called Slack. Some other people use Teams. Some other people use Zoom, but they want to use this 3 or 4 tools all at the same time and not be constrained onto one sort of virtual environment where they cannot really change anything. The other part of this is obviously once you decided how you want the user experience to be, then is to make sure that is secure. Okay, nowadays, because everyone connects everywhere from any devices, like we said, so maybe you be using your daughter's laptop to connect to your work environment because your laptop might be unavailable, or you dropped it or something. So there are ways that you can secure those interaction with the corporate data. One of which is about have the ability to split whichever data you access. So if you have dispersed work environment like us, we have about 6 or 7 engineers that they live in Manchester, Nottingham, and what we do is we have a piece of software that every engineer has on their laptop, and we monitor what apps they have, what corporate data they store in them. Is it up to date? So do we have the latest patches on those devices? And it reports every time is connected to the internet. Another example of how much investment like the bigger players like Microsoft and AWS have in technology is Windows Autopilot. Is something that Microsoft have come up with. So what you do is you go to a shop, you go to PC World, you go to I don't know, any high street vendors, you pick up a laptop, and with Autopilot you can configure it so when a user puts the username and password, so username and email address and the password, the laptop will connect to the internet and it will download and configure that laptop exactly the way that the company wanted to. So with all of the apps, with all of the security, with all of the restriction that you want to be in place. So there is touch zero configuration. So the user goes in, puts username and password, leaves it on the internet for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and this system will auto configure a brand new machine in a matter of minutes. So again, this allows you to be a lot flexible because it doesn't matter if your employee is in Scotland and your office is in Oxford. This will allow you to make sure that your security is consistent. The other thing we come across a lot of at the time is how do you replace office functions? i.e., how do you print? How do you send letters to clients? How do I book a meeting? Or we're in a hybrid work. Okay, everyone is gonna just come to the office and sit where they want, when they want. But how do you manage that? How do you trace that? So there are a lot of tools out there that are allowing businesses to work in that way. So there is a software that is an app you can download on your phone or on your laptop that allows you to book desks space in an office. And this has a IoT or an Internet of Things that once you're in the office, you put your phone down or your laptop and knows you're there. So for cleaning and from traceability of who's been using that desk is all automated, is all there, is already knows where you are, how busy the office is. So you can book like a week in advance and know how many people are going to be in the office in that specific day. Mail rooms, print rooms. We work a lot with legal professional lawyers. The big challenge for them is about archiving paper files. So what's happening now is people are not in the office. They print from home and then they print in the office. And who's going to pick it up and put it in an envelope and send it? So there are companies now that offer hybrid mail rooms where you engage with these companies and you will then have an agreement whereby everything is printed, is sent to them, and they will post it for you, or they will file it and archive it for you. All of the incoming mails can be scanned and then archived and emailed to you. So everything is changing. There is a lot of opportunities out there to just adapt your working way in an hybrid way. Now, a lot of the questions are about, is how much is this going to cost me? Is it going to be really, really expensive? And the simple answer is no. It's not really. I mean, you can reinvest the money that you will spend in other technology in a different way. There are loads of open source free tools out there that allow you to do amazing things like Zoom. For a lot of people, the free version is fine. There are a lot of already built-in hybrid enabled devices or apps. So if you use Office 365 or Microsoft or Google, a lot of those companies already have a stack, a group of apps that allow you to work in an hybrid way. So Microsoft has something built in where it allows you to store a large amount of data for free within one of their lower key subscriptions. So you can have a cloud-based file archiving solution without spending any extra money by using whatever you have already. So it's important that whichever way you look at this, you get someone that knows actually what their offerings are. One thing we see is that some people, unfortunately, or some providers, they just lock client into some like crazy contract, like 60 months of cloud or hybrid, solutions. This is something we don't think is necessary. I think this is just a bit of a not really fair to do. So just check your contract before you enter in any contracts with any suppliers. Make sure they're not really lengthy. Technology change a lot. If you're locked in for a 5-year contract, what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years and how you're going to get out of that. The other thing we see a lot of is that we don't really, companies don't have an exit plan. They say, okay, we're going to go for this virtual desktop. We put everything in this data center, but then no one really asks the question, what happens if the relationship is not going to, it just deteriorates later on in the years to go? How do I get my data back? How much time, and what are the ways that we can get the data? I think, the priority that we do say to people is about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a real threat. It's not something that a lot of people talk about, because there is a big hit on companies at the moment, cybersecurity. So if you had to prioritize on the hybrid work, look at your cybersecurity, make sure your data is secure, make sure your assets are secure in a way, and then prioritize that aspect of the hybrid working. But ultimately, I think hybrid working and the way that you can change the way of working, I think there are a lot of benefits. I think people have a better availability to work different hours. You know, they don't need to do 9 to 5. They can log in. Systems nowadays are available 24/7. You know, we used to do 10, 15 years ago, we used to do maintenance every month. Now this maintenance are done offline, but there is not disruption on the operation of a business. It's just important that, you know, you choose the right hybrid. Don't rush to anything that sounds too good to be true. That's normal. There are a lot of companies that they're doubling on what they're doing. Make sure, you know, they understand your business. You work with them on a long-term plan, and ultimately, you know, it's got to work for you and for your employees.